I was going to do this outside for a change of venue, but the lighting was just too unpredictable. The phone just kept going like dark and light and dark and light for no particular reason. So here I am back in the basement. I want to take a moment to talk about the sub that imploded near the wreckage site of the Titanic. I know it's really easy to blame the people that were in the sub, blame the company. Very easy to say, look, it was a sub operated by a game controller. What did they expect to happen? But I think it's important to note that none of these people wanted to die on this trip, and we need to have some compassion, some basic human compassion for the lives of the people that did perish. But what it does highlight is the extremes that people will go to entertain themselves when they have a bit of money behind them. If you're old like me, entertainment was actually pretty simple. We'd get on our bikes and race our bicycles across the field or down the street. Soapbox racers were still kind of a thing. They were starting to fade, but if you don't know what those are, look them up. They're actually really neat. Um, cap guns, and playing ball against. We called it wall ball, where we would throw a ball against the wall and it would bounce once on the ground, and then we'd have to like return the volley before it bounced the second time, kind of like a poor man's squash, if you will. Um, Going to the variety store and getting penny candies, very very simple things that amused us back in the day. We didn't have a whole lot of money or resources, but we did have all kinds of time, and we used our imagination basically to fill the gaps and entertain ourselves when we possibly could. Well, as we became more affluent and society became more affluent with us, the ways we entertain ourselves actually became a little bit more complex. And now we're seeing like the pinnacle of that. We're seeing space tourism. We're seeing, you know, journeys to undersea wreckages that only experts had access to before. These are the extremes people are willing to go in order to entertain themselves. And the more extreme it gets, the more dangerous it gets. Um, Maybe we need to just go back to basics. Not all the way back to, jumping rope and whatnot, although that's kind of fun too. But tone it down a bit. Maybe we don't have to fly around the world to have a good vacation. Maybe we don't have to have the best of everything all the time in order to live a satisfying life. Maybe the key to having a satisfying life lies between the margins. Maybe the key to having a good life and a good time, is like just letting things happen. Just living within our means and just letting things happen. That's the story that's important. I think of probably the most entertaining times of my life. And it never was that we had the most expensive or the fastest or the best or the most luxurious of anything. It was the story behind it. Um, I didn't become interested in recumbent bikes and trikes because I wanted the best of everything and I thought this is the best there is, so I have to have that. It was mostly out of utility. At the time, I had just split up from my first wife, and I needed transportation. So a regular bike was too hard on the behind and very hard on the knees, and I needed something comfortable. So I decided instead of trying to force my way into getting insurance for a car that I really couldn't afford, I would buy a semi recumbent bike. And that would be my transportation, and I'd deal with that for a little while until I could afford something better. And it sparked a lifelong love of these machines, um, both semi recumbent and full recumbent. Yeah, my semi recumbent bike was $1,500. I mean, it was a little expensive, but it still was cheaper than I was going to have to pay for a year's worth of car insurance. So when you weigh those together, it really made a lot of sense just to bike it everywhere. And having to bike through the winter, that was a complete set of experiences. Um, I learned a lot, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Fun that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Probably more fun and more memorable fun than if I had bought an $80,000 Corvette or a Bugatti or anything. Um, and drove it around and had fun with it. Uh, there's no story in that. At least this there was a story in it, which it meant something to me that way. Maybe that's what we need to focus on. I see a lot of the recumbent trikes that are out today. They have a lot of creature comforts and features that just weren't available 20 years ago. And I sometimes wonder if that's a barrier to people getting into these machines. Do they think that they have to have the best in order to even begin to ride one, in order to begin to enjoy the experience? Not just with recumbent bikes and trikes, but anything. Does everyone just think they have to have the best in order to have the experiences? Unfortunately, this permeates through the entire spectrum of things that we do and ways that we live. From the food that we eat, to the houses we live in, to the cars that we drive, to the bikes we ride, to the clothes we wear, to the standards we have for our kids. The list goes on and on. Are we just expecting too much? And are we destroying this big blue ball that we call Earth in the process? I mean, really, none of these commercial things are actually going to mean anything to us, when we're old. I remember my great uncle Gus. He lived to 102 or 103, something along those lines. And the last time I visited him, he was 90. And his memory was starting to go, and he was showing some very difficult signs of dementia. But he had this one story of how he was in the military, and they would play reveille every morning, and then you have to wake up and make your bed and prepare yourself, and then line up for inspection, to make sure that you did all your morning routines properly. And the one day he couldn't find his razor, so he couldn't shave. And because he spent so much time trying to find his razor, other things were a mess as well. His bed was a mess and whatnot. And so the sergeant, I guess it is, came over to him and said, "You didn't shave." And my Uncle Gus says, "No." So the sergeant's looking for a bit of respect, says, "No, no what?" Uncle Gus says, "No razor." Obviously, he's looking for no sir, but no razor kind of did the trick. We were there for about an hour and a half. He must have told that story about 20 times. Very simple story. Didn't involve anything but forgetting a razor. Um, but it was one of the few things he could remember. And I just wonder, how many of these fancy things are we actually going to remember? How many of the fancy things are actually going to mean anything to us when we become 90 years old, you know, uh, and we're operating more on our basic instincts than we are anything else. You know, um, I'm still going to love bikes and trikes. Uh, I'm still going to love my semi-recumbent bike and my trike, my recumbent trike. I'm going to love my home. I'm going to love all three of my wives. I've been married 3 times now. I'm going to love my dogs. I'm going to love my new cat. Yeah, we have a new cat. I'll tell you that story. I'm going to love my kids, my grandkids, and all the stories we've had along the way. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to remember, the most expensive meal I ever had, or the fanciest place I've ever visited, or because none of it really actually has a meaning attached to it. And really and truly, the things that we value are the things that have meaning. Not the things that are worth the most or are the most expensive. When I think about the people who have been happiest in their lives, and especially toward the ends of their lives, um, it wasn't the richest people, and it wasn't um, the people that had the fanciest stuff. In fact, they were probably the most miserable. The people that I've known that have had the happiest lives and the best experience, especially toward the end of their lives, are people that had a story. Maybe they had very little and they had to make do with it. Maybe they encountered a situation where they had to improvise. But it always ends with a sense of accomplishment. And I think that's what we're substituting when we have fancy things. I think we're substituting material goods and luxury for accomplishment. And I think it jeopardizes our long term happiness. So it's easy to criticize the people that got on board that ill fated sub, and that imploded. and say, they were just asking for it, or like, what were they thinking? $250,000 to go see the Titanic. That's ridiculous. Just because it's out of reach of most of us doesn't make it any more ridiculous than the things that we do. Yeah, they paid the ultimate price for their foolishness. Um, but I think a lot of people are making equally foolish decisions, and they're dying inside too. It's just maybe their death isn't so instantaneous and merciful. I think oftentimes those of us who indulge in a little too much luxury, we're dying inside too. Not from an instantaneous depressurization of a submarine cabin, but by denying ourselves the ability to live and the opportunity to live, truly live. Anyhow, that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell for more content. Thank you very much. Until next time.